Hey everyone, STT here, and it's that time of year again where we get into our annual video game review. This video is going to be a little different than the past two, if only because I've played a lot more games this year than I have in the previous 2 years. So, by my count, I have played 63 different games this year, 54 which were new to me this year, 23 which were actually 2025 releases, and 6 that were late enough in 2024 that I'll be considering them 2025-ish games for the purposes of this video, although I will point them out every time that happens. Um, for comparison, my previous videos usually had about 20 games, maybe 25 that were new to me that year, and this year it's 54. So that's a lot for me to talk about. I'm going to actually try to get through things quickly. And I've also actually broken things down with this many games. I've actually broken things down into a few extra categories, which I'll do little mini reviews on as well. Um, Down in the description, I'm going to have all the games I've played listed alphabetically as usual. But as we go through them this year, I'm going to do them chronologically based on the last time I played them. Thankfully, I've taken notes throughout the year. Some of the notes have been better than others. But we'll get through this as quickly as we can and get to what I say are some of the best games this year, as well as some of the best games in each category that I can now look at. All right, starting off this list, we have Mythwrecked Ambrosia Island. This is a game that I played way back in January and haven't touched since. Although I do like it. I should have played it more, and I just haven't. That's going to be a theme that kind of goes through most of the review here. There are so many games that I've put less than 4 hours into. It's easier for me to count the ones that have got more than that. Um, but there's just a lot of video games being made this year. Anyway, Mythwrecked. I think it's a really fun game. You play as someone who's been lost on an island. You get to interact with a bunch of old Greek gods who have lost their memories, and you get to do chores for them and things like that. Which getting to do chores doesn't sound fun, but the game makes it fun. Um, this is one of several games I have notes for where I didn't quite like the camera controls. That seems to be a theme early in the year where the thing holding back some games was camera control. But again, otherwise it was mostly good. I loved the game loop for how all of it worked in Mythwrecked. I could tell by the end of my stream though that things were starting to get a little hectic, and I hadn't even unlocked I think even half of the characters at that point. So it'll be interesting. So I do need to get back to it because it'll be interesting to see, how that loop and the hecticness evolves from things. Okay, next up among my January games is Atlyss, which is kind of an action RPG, 3D. It looks like it's maybe from an older generation of games, but I think it's only developed by like one or maybe one or two people, and it does really well with the simplified graphics. So I think that is a plus. A minus for the game, in addition to being one where I had issues with camera controls, is just the controls in general felt a little janky. But considering it's the action RPG, I think it might have done better with an actual controller because I always play with a keyboard and mouse. So I'm not going to hold that against it too much. Um, let's see what else I want to point out. I do know Atlyss actually had its own like controversy somewhere throughout the year, depending on like how the developer was animating their characters, something to that effect. But I think that was just a nothing burger. Ultimately, it was one of those things where an internet rumor either starts with no basis or as a misinterpretation of something, and then it blows up. Which we've seen multiple times in the gaming industry this year. 2025 has been an interesting year for the gaming industry for sure. We can maybe touch on that a little bit more later. I think the only other little minus I had for Atlyss is I had trouble navigating it a couple of times, mostly just for the difficulty in seeing things, which I think the graphics choice was very intentionally done and very well done for what they did, but there were still a few small things here and there that I could have needed little fixes on. And it was clearly a very deep game. It's got a huge stats and magic system that I didn't really delve into. I'm sure people have, and it seems like it's very fun. I know people have kept playing with it. It still has really great reviews. So yeah, fun game. It's one of those games where this one I actually didn't play just once. I played it twice because I actually had to finish a dungeon because I really wanted to do that. The combat is definitely something that I'm not used to, but that's not a knock on it. That's a knock on me as a gamer. Again, something you'll see mentioned a couple of times through this review. I play my puzzle games for the most part, so any sort of action stuff is less up my alley, but it was fun, if a little frustrating for me personally. All right, next up, this game actually is not new to me this year, but I did end up playing it a few times in January. It's Neva. I've talked about it before in a previous video. You can go and check it out if you want. I'm not going to say much more about it, aside from that it is gorgeous, and the ending was actually really well done. The boss fight, the last boss fight felt easy, and I'm not sure if that was just because it catered to my style or because they made it easy to make the player feel really triumphant. Either way, great game. Go back to my previous review video if you want to hear more about it. Okay, the next game to talk about here is A Shelter Full of Cats, which is one of a large Full of Cats series of games. They're kind of hidden object games where you just look at a flat image and try to find what you want to find. So really not really relatively simple, not complicated game. I can fully see how people sink hours into these games. In fact, uh, later in January, in fact, I'll just say it here. I played a bunch of games in the 101 Cats Hidden series as well. Those aren't nearly as good as the Full of Cats series. I think the Full of Cats series, there's plenty of other games that I haven't played yet. I think there was one that was supposed to release in 2025. Shelter Full of Cats was one of the late 2024 games, as were Mythwrecked and Atlyss. Um, but yeah, I need to actually go back and look and see what more is in the Full of Cats series, because Shelter Full of Cats was amazing. For the kind of genre it is. The end of the game was great. There was an adoption party, which pulls at my heartstrings, and so that was fun. I got most of the achievements here. Yeah, I can really see what the appeal of the hidden object games if you want to spend some time. Just doing something easy and fulfilling, seeing your progress right in front of you as you do it. Next up here, and the last of the January games, is a game called Refined Self. I think basically the way you play it and the decisions you make, you end up getting assigned like a personality type. And you can play it multiple times and it will give you different answers each time depending on what your choices are. I think it also builds on your previous playthroughs. I don't know. I've only done it once. But I think a lot of the achievements that I noticed seem like you have to be unlocking things over time. Very chill, and it's a little bit the aesthetic is a little bit of intentionally uneasy. It's like you're in this sort of post-apocalyptic world. You're a robot. It's really kind of fun to explore. I will say probably the reason that I haven't played it again is in the run that I did. The game ended with a turret defense and final battle sort of thing, which was very out of left field for the way the rest of the game had been playing. So instead of wanting to know more, I just felt confused. So yeah, it'll be interesting to maybe go back and play it again to see how it updates my like personality profile. But that was an odd choice that turned me off of it a little bit. Moving on into February, we now have the first of one of several games where I got into the habit of getting a demo for free before I played the full game, and in many cases, the full game wasn't even available. For this game, the full release did come later in the year, and I haven't played that yet. But I did play the demo and enjoyed it. This is Schrodinger's Cat Burglar. By the name, you can tell it's both a heist mission and a kind of puzzle physics trickery sort of thing. And it has cats. It's an amazing pun for the game. Actually, let me check my notes. Is it open yet? Okay, yes, I can confirm that the full game will not release until next year. And I'm really looking forward to it. So this was one of those demos where I wish there was more just because I liked it so much. Some demos you wish there were more because you feel like you don't necessarily get a good sense of what the game is about. You get maybe one instance of the key game loop, and that's it. Schrodinger's Cat Burglar gives you plenty of puzzles to solve, and it's really I want to see more of how creative the puzzles get. Um, I didn't really take notes for this game, unfortunately, so that is limiting all I can say. I just remember that I liked it. I got through the entire demo in like an hour and a half. I think less than that. So I want more. Please, I want more. Both because it's more cat content and because I love my puzzle games. It is super creative. Um, yeah, I don't know. I've never played Portal. I feel like this hits some of that itch. People who played Portal should try this out and tell me if I'm right or not. All right, next up, another demo that I played, and this one I can confirm the game is out already, is Jumping Jazz Cats. Again, another cat game, and I also love my music. Jazz is definitely up there for me, so I thought it'd be fun to see what that was about. It's basically a little platformer where you just go around different 3D environments collecting like music notes and things like that. It's cute. This was one where I did feel like it did give you a couple puzzles, or not puzzles, couple worlds to interact with, but I felt like there should have been a lot more, so I do need to check out the full game release at some point. I do remember that the controls were a little rough to use, which again, it's a platformer. Maybe having an actual game control might make it better for me than using a keyboard and mouse. But yeah, worth checking out. All right, next on my list here is Cassette Beasts. This is a game I've already talked about. I started playing it back when it released back in 2023. This is the third year I've put time into it at some point. Now, unfortunately for Cassette Beasts, I think I only played this once or twice early in the year. Again, you can look at some of my past reviews to hear more about it. I think it is still the best adaptation of the Pokemon-like theme. And I've actually played 10 different Pokemon and Pokemon-like games this year. So you'll hear me talking about this later in the video. But again, I only played it once or twice just because the rest of the year kind of got from me. I've actually had several friends now this year who've completed Cassette Beasts. Again, this game has been out for like 2.5, 3 years, and I have friends just now completing it. Some of them because I only started it recently, but it's a fun game. I think it's the best Pokemon-like out there, or the best evolution of a Pokemon-like out there. And yeah, check out some of the other reviews if you want to hear more. All right, next up, we are in late March now, and I have to talk about Mars Vice. This is a game, again, I only got the demo, and the full version is out, so it's something I'm worth checking out. I'm a little bit, I don't want to say hesitant or wary, but this is one of those demos where you really don't get an amazing sense for the full game loop just from the demo. The demo was more introducing you to the world and introducing you to the basic controls of the game. If you look at some of like the trailers and gameplay stuff, there's so much more to Mars Vice. So I want to check it out. It's just that the demo was so kind of bare bones. It's like, we're gonna do it, but the demo was great. I absolutely love the world they built. I absolutely love the characters that they've made to fill the world. It's fun. I would recommend checking it out, and I do need to, again, I played through the entire demo in like 20 minutes, so not large enough to really get you to know how the game is. I just need to kind of bite the bullet and check it out. It's on sale right now. Instead of $25, it's like 19, so I may do it. I already got a ton of games in the winter sale, so we'll see. But that might be on my backlog for next year. And oh god, my backlog. All right, next up here is another one of my Pokemon likes, and my first comment on the street here is OMG, so worth the hype in all caps. This is Beastieball. I actually heard about this from watching some other streamers who got to preview it, and it really got me excited, and the game lived up to that. It is very different than any of the other Pokemon likes, or at least some of the more traditional ones, in that Beastieball doesn't really have types that you work with. You basically just have three stats with an offense and defense in each of those stats. I think it's mind, body, and spirit. Um, because this is like a sports anime game. This Beastieball totally leans into the fact that it's making fun of living as a sports anime. Um, I do miss some of the more tight matchups, but the fact that you are adapting the Pokemon idea to volleyball is really fun. Like surprisingly, I played this. This is like the first game on my list here that I've clocked over 4 hours on during this calendar year. In fact, I have like 6.5 hours on BC Ball. So I absolutely have not beaten the game. I think I've only beaten like the first. So I obviously went through the tutorial, and then I conquered two of the other arenas, I think, or their version of gym leaders, basically. And now the entire world opened up to me, and I really didn't know what to do, and that's why I haven't played it much since then. But it is just there's definitely a lot of things in the game that I still want to explore. I want to know more about the league system. I want to know more about like how the different beasties interact with each other, because I've noticed you can have rivals, you can have besties, you can have whatever. Um, it's it's what am I trying to say here? I don't want to call it like chess because it's nowhere near that complex. But the fact that you get to position yourself in the volleyball court with your two beasties, that adds a really interesting level of gameplay that no other Pokemon like has. At least none of the ones that I've played. Um, so that sort of positioning and strategy. Maybe it's better to compare it to a tactics game than it is to compare it to chess. But even that's probably not fair. Tactic games are really involved, but it has that element to it. Um, so it's fun. I need to get back into it. All right, next up here on my list from April is a game called On Your Tail. This is actually one of those late 2024 releases, although I only played the demo, which had released earlier, like noticeably earlier than that. I forget when the demo actually went out. On Your Tail is a very cute game. It's sort of a kind of click and point detective game, which has there are definitely aspects to it that weren't really in the demo that more give it like a kind of adventure life sim sort of thing, because you're basically exploring a little town and establishing yourself there as well as solving all these mysteries. um, this is one of those demos where you got one example of the main game loop. It did have some side like whatevers to work with as well, like some mini games and everything, which were kind of fun to play around with. But I only got one example of the main game loop, and then the demo was done. Um, I solved the example main game loop pretty easily. I did hear that as things get more complex, the main game loop can get frustrating because there were a lot of animations involved in that main game loop. So if you get something wrong, everything replays. They might have fixed that for the full game release. I don't know. It's worth checking out. I do know it's gotten a lot of overall positive reviews. So yeah, I could definitely see myself checking it out again. It's one of those games where you only got a really tiny snippet of what the game could offer. So we'll see. But again, because it's kind of a detective thing, it does scratch that sort of puzzle solving aspect that I do like. So it could be worth getting the full game for this. Again, it's also on sale right now on Steam for the winter sale. But we'll see. It's a fun game. It's kind of on my list now of potential revisits. Okay, next up is one game that I probably can't talk about too much on this video. It is a game called Knights College. So Knights College is basically like a visual novel style game. Well, it is a visual novel style game, and it is popular enough that it has a sequel out already. So that's certainly worth checking out. Um, I can't talk about it much because it does have adult content in it, and you will not see me playing it on YouTube or on Twitch. I have played a session on joystick.tv, I need to get back into joystick. I think that's the only time I've visited joystick after, only time I played something on joystick. I visited more times, both before and after that. But I actually do have a list of adult games that I want to play. So Knights College is the first one that I've tried, and I need to do more. Okay, next up here is, we're actually into May now, and it's Awaria, which is a really fun kind of cartoon animated bullet hell sort of thing. Um, and I've never done bullet hells before. This was my first journey into bullet hell stuff. And it's definitely not my style of game. I was playing on easy mode, and I think I only got halfway through the storyline before it was more than I could take. It's probably something I could do a lot better with practice, but it was fun. Like some other games, I'll get like really frustrated with, and this one was more like, eh. I don't know, bullet hells. I would need to pick and choose. The pace and the precision of it all was really what kind of got me. But it was cute. I think, yeah, so it's cute. I think one of the really fun things about this is it has the sort of LGBTQ silliness that goes with it. Because the main character is female, and all of these ghosts and zombies you're trying to fight are also female. You're in this sort of like punk atmosphere. It's fun. But yes, bullet hells are not my thing. All right, these next three games are all games that I've talked about in the past. They are not new to me this year. We've got the puzzle game Voxelgram, which is basically 3D Picross, or if I forget what other name that sort of genre goes by. Voxelgram did release a sequel, or at least they released the demo to the sequel this year, so I have tried that as well. I'm really looking forward to playing the full thing there. But Voxelgram is Voxelgram. You can hear me talk about it previously. The other two that were not new to me here that I replayed in May were Slice and Dice and Dicey Dungeons, two dice-based roguelikes, and they're not the only ones this year. But they're both very fun. I do know that my second attempt at Slice and Dice, I didn't do nearly as well as my first one, which was, again, last year. So maybe I got really lucky on the first one, but that's very fun. Dicey Dungeons, I'm a little bit more on. The design of the game is great, particularly how you use your dice to do things. It's sort of over-the-top campiness I'm not as enamored with. Still very fun, and I think part of the reason I haven't really gotten into Dicey Dungeons is there's clearly a lot of things you can unlock, but my playthroughs of it, I haven't unlocked stuff. So maybe there's just a little bit of frustration there. I would love to actually see what it looks like for someone who's unlocked more of the game. Maybe there's more fun to be had. But yeah, those are older games that I've enjoyed, tried to play again. In addition to Voxelgram having released its own sequel, I do have one more comment on it. It's a classic of mine, though Mimic Logic will change that, because I heard at some point early this year about a game called Mimic Logic, and we will talk about that later. All right, next up is a big one here. It is Blueprints. And this is probably one of the two games on my list that has actually gotten Game of the Year accolades, or at least nods, in the greater gaming sphere. So there's not much I can say about this that hasn't already been said. I will say that I've only played it twice, but each time I've played it, I've sunk nearly 4 hours into it. It draws you in. It is amazing. It is creative. Yeah, as I said, there's not much to add to this that other people haven't already said. I just say I love it. And I need to play more, because clearly I've done less than 8 hours, and there's so much to this game to explore. So yes, we will see more of this coming up on my channels. Next up here is a fun little puzzle game called Luminatory. It basically is based on the science of light, where you are sending and creating and receiving photons, and the puzzles are based on how you can split those photons into different colors and recombine them in interesting ways to help solve all the puzzles. And it is have as it has a factory sort of aspect to it, because the more photons you collect, you can create upgrades to your setup to get more photons through. So it's just how efficient of a system can you create that solves the task in front of you. Really fun stuff. Again, I think I've only played this like 2 or 3 times, but another one that I really want to do more of. And I do think this was one of 2 or 3 games where I actually ended up having one of the creators come and comment on my YouTube video. So I definitely need to play more and give them some more feedback. But that was really cool to see, especially because this is one of the few puzzle games where I'm like, okay, I've been stumped by a few of the levels. There aren't many puzzle games I have run into over the course of the year where just pushing at something for long enough eventually got me to that light bulb moment to solve it. There are a few puzzles in Luminatory where I was like, I'm just gonna move on and try a different puzzle. So there's definitely stuff I need to figure out. Um, it'll be interesting. I really want to see what optimized play, because I've only really played through like the first set of puzzles, like the lighter options. There are several difficulties available. And again, the game is kind of has the factory aspect to it, where there's probably a great way to seriously optimize play and the amount of energy and the amount of photons you're getting. I haven't solved that yet, and I haven't really watched any YouTube videos to figure out what sort of strategies are out there. I do want to figure that out on my own. So yeah, that just means I have to play it again. Okay, next up on my list here is A Short Hike. This is a game that had its own class of accolades come through back when it released, when people were playing it, talking about it. It's the almost perfect encapsulation of what a short game should be. Also a cozy game. Um, and so yeah, again, another game where, I can't really say much that hasn't already been said. The one comment I will add, and aside from me just absolutely loving us how cute and how fun it was, I did end up getting a couple of achievements in the game. Um, but I went looking after the fact, and I realized that there are a lot of achievements in that game that are more toward grinding as opposed to toward exploration and discovery. And I feel like that doesn't fit the type of game it's trying to be. Because I don't know. The island is the main character in A Short Hike. So the fact that some of these achievements are just, repeat something enough until you get enough items, until you get a high enough score, doesn't feel like the rest of the game. But that is like the only knock I have on it. Even my criticism for other games where it's like, oh, the camera's terrible. No, the camera's great for A Short Hike. You got good control. You can do a ton of what you want. Um, yeah, it's just amazingly chill and cozy and like a perfect tiny package. All right. Next up here, and the last game that I haven't talked about yet from my big marathon at the end of May, is Dungeon Raise. It is a roguelike or roguelite, actually is probably the better way to put it, where you are someone who is exploring a dungeon basically, but the way you explore is you destroy stuff. um, and it is not a bullet hell, uh, but it gets let's see, yeah, it's closer to sort of like Vampire Survivors, I think, which is another game I haven't played, just putting it out there. But I know when you get into the lower levels, I remember always just getting surrounded by enemies and just kind of being mobbed, and having to use your abilities to try to get through as much as you can. um but I mentioned bullet hells because this game feels a lot to me like Awaria did, in the fact that it's very high energy and I can only take it in small doses. It's very fun, and this one is more approachable to me than Awaria was. Probably because it is maybe that Vampire Survivors type instead of the bullet hell type. But again, small doses. I haven't played it since that first session. Well, hang on. No, I have to have done it more than once. I think I have my notes wrong here. It looks like I've only done it once, but I've put an hour and a half in, which wasn't just one session. Because, like, again, only small doses. Um, can't marathon it, but fun to, if you got 5 or 10 minutes to see how far you can get in one quick dash. Because it is fast paced. Ooh, okay. Next one up here is a game called Montabai. I don't know how to pronounce it. Um, but this is sort of a how do I want to put it? It's an interesting mix. It's like a roguelite Pokemon like where each step of the progression, the combat, is like a tactics thing. So it's an interesting mix of stuff. It's definitely out there in terms of some of the other Pokemon likes that I've played. But you have that whole sort of collect all the creatures and evolve them based on all the battles that you're doing. Um, it's really fun. Again, this is one that I've only done once. And this is another one of those few games where I actually had the creator come and comment on my YouTube video. So one that I really should play again and get some more feedback in. So the full game says coming soon. I don't know how soon that is. But this is another actually so worth pointing out. This is so the developer is Mankibo, the publisher is Akupara, and Akupara has a lot of hits on their hands. So I think that might be one of the reasons why I pulled it in the first place. Um, but yeah, they've got what are some of the other ones that I've played? Let's see. So they did Rain World, which I have in my library, but I haven't played yet. So that's absolutely one I do need to play. What's other some Cryptmaster I have played. I will comment on that one later. Okay, they both have more than I thought. But not some things I thought they had more than I'd done before. And again, Montabi is fun. Um, the developer Mankibo, I think this is their only game so far. Yeah. But I'm excited to see when the full version release. The game loop for Montabi is fun. Very much so. But yeah, I'll have to check it out some more. Next up, I will keep this quick, is Voxelgram 2. I talked about Voxelgram earlier. For almost all of 2024, that was like one of my most played games. I would sink half an hour to an hour into it each day. And Voxelgram 2 looks great. I've only played the demo so far. I think the full game has been released. The demo already let me know that you can have two colors in a single puzzle. And I think they had the architecture to go up to three, but that wasn't part of the demo. The demo also didn't get to the size of puzzles that I was used to. I was used to playing puzzles that were, 9 aside or larger in the original game, and I think the demo only got you up to 7 aside. Um, so I didn't play much of the Voxelgram 2 demo. Just decided to comment that, hey, it looks like quality of life has improved. It looks like the extra colors that you can play with is a fun twist. I need to go in and actually get the full version because that is a game that can take a ton of my time. The big reason that I didn't do more Voxelgram, the main one though, as I mentioned earlier, is a game called Mimic Logic. That got me off of my Voxelgram habit, and we will talk more about why in a bit. All right, next up here is a game called Creature Keeper, which I think, I forget if I saw it on Blue Sky or if I saw it on Steam first, but I remember people advertising it as a cross between Zelda and Pokemon, which is a tall order. Like, those are two giants of their respective genres, and of just of gaming in general. So calling yourself a fusion of the two, got a lot to live up to. Creature Keeper is a very well done game, but I don't think it lives up to that stature by any means. And the Pokemon aspect of it, the Pokemon-like aspect, where you're kind of collect monsters, there was an element of elemental battle to it, from what I remember, and there was certainly a collection aspect. But it didn't feel like that sort of collecting and type matching that I'm used to in a lot of Pokemon likes. Um, and the Zelda aspect didn't land a bunch either. It certainly had that high fantasy setting, but the game itself didn't mechanically feel like Zelda, at least as far as I had played through it. Now, I only played an hour and a half, so I might not have hit, the big portions of it, but it felt, what's a good comparison? Uh, I don't know. I'm not as versed as games as I need to be, but it didn't quite land. Um, I'm curious maybe to put some more time in, but not super curious. Um, Still certainly seems like a game that other people would like, though. All right, we're getting to the middle of the year now, and two things that took up a huge portion of my year were my Nuzlockes that I played. I did one Nuzlocke on Pokemon Soul Silver, which was a normal monotype-ish Nuzlocke. And then I did a Soul Lock with my friend Alex the Great um, on Pokemon Platinum. Both of those I have huge series on my YouTube channel. I mean, they're the Gen 4 Pokemon games. They're always fun to come back to. And we succeeded in both of them, so that's always nice. Both of them, though, I realize were a lot more of a struggle for me than Nuzlocks in the past have been. When I was in the heyday of my Nuzlocking career, which was an active participant in the Nuzlocke forums and an active participant in the largest Nuzlocke group on DeviantArt, um, I would usually get through a Nuzlocke with 3 to 5 deaths through the whole thing. The Soul Silver normal type, I wiped 2 or 3 times before I found a line that worked on the next run. And the Platinum, I was losing Pokemon left and right. It was kind of embarrassing, if I'm fully honest. But still fun, both of them. But it's like I can see why some people were view Nuzlocke as particularly difficult. I never did previously, um, and then I had these ones come and catch up to me. So there you go. Continuing our line of Pokemon and Pokemon-like games, the next game I played in July was a game called New Monsters. NUU Monsters, all one word. Um, it is it is an homage to the early Pokemon games. Like everything is really blocky sprites. The type system is there, but it's relatively simple. Um, and uh, I didn't get super far in New Monsters. It was a really fun game, and I had a full intent to do more with it. Like I actually even have the I still have the achievement guide for New Monsters open in one of my tabs somewhere. So full intent to keep playing, try to get as far as I could through it. Um, but the studio that made New Monsters several years ago released their next project this year, last year. Hang on. Last year, late last year. So it counts as one of those late 2024 games that I'm rolling into the 2025 crowd. They made a game called Dokimon, and it is just a complete improvement on New Monsters. So I'm probably not going to go back to New Monsters, but it's an amazing effort for a first release and also an amazing example of, you know, how you get better at developing games over time. So credit to that team. All right, next on my list, one game that's not new to me, and I've talked about it in the past, and I'm still not done with it, is Tears of the Kingdom. Um, I've mentioned it in the past few videos, so I'm not going to say much extra here. Aside from the fact that I am now all 5 stages in, I've got the all 120 shrines in. I'm trying to complete as much as I can before going through the enemy rush at the end of the game, because I know it's tough. I know Tears of the Kingdom uh, you rely a little bit more on your actual fighting skills in battle. And I'm not the best with the sword skills, so I'm trying to practice as much as I can. Or I say as much as I can, but I'm not turning on my Switch super often these days. So that's something I still need to do. I actually received 2 Zelda games as Christmas presents this year. The remake of Link's Awakening and then the Echoes of Wisdom. So there's 2 games on the same engine, both for the Switch. I need to finish Tears of the Kingdom, uh, not only to play those games next, but also because I think I still have Age of Calamity on my backlog. So lots of Zelda in my future if I want to do it, and if I actually get the time and get the energy to turn on the Switch. All right, next up on my list here, we're into August now, is a game called Cryptmaster. And I was honestly pretty hyped for Cryptmaster. I saw it mentioned on some other YouTubers like video summaries and things like that. So it looked really cool, and I was extremely interested in the fact that it seemed like an open-ish world where you make your actions by typing words, and you could do a bunch of different stuff with whatever random words you put in, explore whatever thing, whatever the world they had down there. I will say the aesthetic is not my style of game. It's definitely a strong style. The developers knew exactly what they wanted, and they did it amazingly well. It's not my style, but I was more interested in the gameplay mechanics and loop. Um, I was a little disappointed with the mechanics because the overworld ability to do tasks was not as open-ended as I thought it would be. There's a lot of things where you could just type a word and the game does nothing because it's not a recognizable command at that point. Um, so a little bit disappointed there. I still think it was a very fun game, especially with the way you kind of had a or sort of progression with each of the four characters in your party. Um, but I wish the game had been more, and maybe I just didn't get to where I needed to get to. Honestly, like I'll say this one felt a little bit more Legend of Zelda than Creature Keeper did. Um, and I'm trying to think what other games it reminds me of. Um, not many more are coming to mind right now. But yeah, just the way you kind of explored that world, you had all the different sorts of tasks. It was like, yeah, kind of an open world RPG, adventure RPG sort of thing. Just everything you did was words. And I think that's a really cool concept. And maybe I just didn't get far enough for that concept to develop into what I was expecting it to be. Still a very cool game. And the fact that you could do as much as you could with the words, I have to say this, even though it wasn't as much as I wanted, it was really flexible even on its own. Um, so really created, and kudos to the developers for that one. All right, we're gonna rapid fire these next games. These were all done in August. These were all games that I got from the Itch.io Queer Bundle. Um, so we have A Tavern at Night Firelight, which is the sequel to A Tavern at Night, where you get to romance a handsome orc. We've got Blobun, which is a puzzle game, and probably the only game of this list that was actually released in 2025. You basically the nature of the puzzles is you're taking your little marker, going through a map, trying to just basically paint the entire map in one continuous line. So not breaking any boundaries there, but very well executed. Very well done. I did like Blobun. There was the Summit Library, which a sort of visual novel, high fantasy sort of thing with a nice magical mystery going on. That's one of the games, I think maybe even the only game here where I am really interested in playing more of it, and I just haven't gotten around to it. But Summit Library, very well done, very good game. Um, Next on that list of queer bundle games is Hero Tome. Also sort of a visual novel style adventure thing where everyone is a superhero of some sort, or I should say at least everyone has superpowers of some sort. And superheroes are almost sort of this own government entity thing that have their own, image to upkeep, and you are now suddenly getting swept up all into that. Um, Really fun concept. All the characters seem really lively, and I like the interaction. I do know that, at least at the state when I played it, and I think still, because I think I checked the Itch.io page recently, uh, the only main character programmed in right now is more female presenting than male presenting. So for all of the um, queer interactions that this game is offering or sometimes teasing at, you only get that one side of things. So I would certainly like more. I would love to see how much more development it gets, but I could play more of it. We can certainly do that at some point in the future. Hoping This Finds You Well is the next game in this list. It is, I'll say I liked the game with the exception that it wasn't much of a game. You were just clicking through a novel. I wouldn't even call it a visual novel because it's just a series of letters from one character to the other, and you're just clicking through it, reading it, and just following along with the plot. Almost like a walking simulator, but in literary form. Still very cute, and I know it sort of is a prequel to that developer's other game, which I think is a lot more involved. So I may try that. But hoping this finds you well, I was really intrigued because of the concept. It's Victorian letter writing and, queer undertones in that. Especially because it was also academia, which is also something that really tapped into my own experience. Just I spent so long in academia, y'all, so long. Um, so it was a nice hook. I wish it was more of an actual game, but if it serves as a prequel to another game, I'll maybe have to check that one out later. And last in this queer bundle list is a game called Fetch Quest. Again, just sort of a visual novel thing. You're interacting with a couple of other characters under the premise of you're playing a D&D game. You are both the characters in the game with that fourth wall knowledge of the players who are playing the characters as well. And of course, at the end of like the D&D game, you leave the session with one of your friends, based on what happened within the D&D session itself. So cute. Not a lot of replayability. Uh, but again, I think that's also a game that is connected to like another series, so something to look into in the future. And yeah, those are the 6 games from the Itch.io Queer Bundle I played. When you buy the entire Queer Bundle, it's like 600 games and art and music items and things like that. So I barely scratched the surface this year or the previous years. I got to do more. All right, we're now getting through summer and into fall. Or well, I say we're getting into fall, but the next game on my list here is Mimic Logic, which I actually started playing way back in the winter, and this is what got me off of Voxelgram. So I spent a good, 8 months playing this game on and off. Not nearly as much as Voxelgram, but it felt more involved. Voxelgram, I could almost kind of go on autopilot. Mimic Logic really has me engaged. And the idea is you an adventurer going down levels of a dungeon where you are presented with a bunch of treasure chests, each with a clue on it. And you have to determine which of the chests actually have treasure and which of the chests are mimics. It is a rogue light, I would say, because there is some progression. There is a very, very faint roguelike element to it in the fact that you collect experience and you can have permanent buffs that affect your character. But those buffs don't make themselves obvious as you're going through each run. So it really does feel more roguelike. Um, and what else I want to say about Mimic Logic? But yeah, this is largely what I expected of the game based on what I had seen other people saying, and that is a compliment in this case. I love this. The logic is fun. I was taken a little by surprise in the fact that, every few levels of the dungeon that you get through is actually a combat level instead of a Mimic Logic level. Um, but I think it was actually done with a really good balance. Um, the the game loop basically makes all of the logic puzzles prep for your fights, but it does so in a way where it doesn't feel like the fights are the focus. The logic puzzles are the focus, and the fights are just kind of bonus, but you need to do well on the logic puzzles to do well on the fights. So all in all, great setup. Yeah, I would say that especially as you keep playing, you can, get used to some of the game patterns and try harder and harder puzzles. I haven't tried the hardest levels of Mimic Logic yet, but I probably will. All right, we are strongly into September now in my list, and this is around the time where I switched from streaming on YouTube to streaming on Twitch. And one of the first games that I did on Twitch was a demo for a game called Relooted. Um, so it's the idea of, you're looting something, but relooted, you're actually doing it again. And the concept here is a kind of Afrofuturistic tech sort of team uh, going into questionable museums and private collections around the world to repatriate some of their artifacts, which I just think that's a fun concept. I'm sure some people will actually be offended by it, but with everything that's gone on in the world, I say, cultures deserve to have their own representation. I think that's pretty simple. Um, uh, but yeah, to the game itself, it is, I guess, what was the best way to say? I guess I would call it a platformer, um, except it's a prep platformer. Uh, you basically get to scope out every level where you're going to go loot some artifacts, and utilize your team members. Place them around, whatever building you're looting here, and then do a setup where there's low action, where you're kind of exploring the building, making sure to see everything that's in place, and then the heist begins. And when the heist begins, that's where the real platforming thing is. You are running around, getting through traps, holding doors open, jumping across ledges, all sorts of fun stuff. Um, the demo for this game had a tutorial level and then an actual playable level. So you got to actually experience the game loop 1.5 times. The tutorial was just for the platforming bit. You didn't get to do sort of the heist planning. You only got to do that once instead of twice. But it was a really nice balance. And the demo also had just enough plot framing both the tutorial and the heist to let you know the full scope of the game that's going to happen. So, props to the developers there, for creating a really nice demo. I'm curious to see what the full game looks like, and I'm trying to remember when that is due to release, because I don't think it's out yet. It just says coming soon. And it has no reviews yet. No one's reviewed it, even the demo. Hang on a minute. I may need to review it. Anyway, yeah, I thought it was fun. Some of the controls weren't quite as obvious as I would have liked them to be, and some of them were a little bit more like precision than I like them to be. Because again, I'm not an action gamer very much. But those are small gripes. I think overall, all the puzzles, all the controls really set up well. So yeah, I am looking forward to seeing more of Relooted. Going from one platformer to another, the next game I tried in September, at least on my list here, is Nico de Rico. This was a late 2024 release. I've only played the demo. I know the full game is out, but I've played the demo, and it's a really fun game, even if, again, this sort of like action platformer is not my jam. I know Nico de Rico, when it was first put out there into the world, kind of advertised and whatever, it was looking like an homage to the Crash Bandicoots and the Banjo-Kazooies and the Donkey Kong countries of old. And I didn't play many of those. I think I played Donkey Kong Country, but I didn't play the other two. And this, just from its aesthetics, its looks, its controls, it feels like it did a really good job. Again, action platformers aren't my thing, but this was a really fun game. I don't think I even got to the end of the demo because I got frustrated with I couldn't complete some of the levels. I don't have those skills in my hands yet. But yeah, so maybe not the best game for me, but if you like those old school N64 action platformer games, this is amazing. All right, next on my list here, getting into October, is Crystallium. It is a rhythm game in the genre of like the Guitar Hero style of rhythm games, where you've got the board of targets coming down at you, and you have to hit your action keys with the music to properly hit those. Obviously, a little bit more complex than the Guitar Heroes of the world, because there are multiple different types of items, not just, right, left, whatever, that are coming down the board in Crystallium. It's a little bit more creative along the lines of some of the rhythm games that you might see more in, Asian markets. Because those sorts of games don't get to the North American and European markets nearly as much as they should. This is the first one of this style of game that I've played. Well, in a long time. Obviously, I've done the Guitar Heroes and such, but I've never done one of these on my laptop before, and the controls felt a little off. I think if I had had a controller, especially like a custom controller built for rhythm games, again, like Guitar Hero, it might have been easier. But the music was nice, the energy was high, and there was an interesting like character progression in Crystallium as well, which I'm not sure I really explored a ton. I leveled up plenty of my characters. I'm not sure I've played enough to know if or how that leveling up affected the game. So something to explore. Um, but yeah, it's one of several rhythm games I've played this year, and actually that's a category I need to actually make sure to focus on. But we'll get into some more in a little bit. All right, we're now into October solidly in my list of games. Next one up here is Willow Guard. It is a fun RPG game. It has an interesting balance between sort of there's some combat sections, and then there's more sort of exploration detective sessions that are kind of in a visual novel-esque sort of format, which is really fun. Just kind of point and click around, asking characters questions. I split this demo between two sessions. The full game is out, and I would definitely like to see what the full game is because the demo gives you a really good sampling of everything available, but you do not have the resources to do everything in the demo. There's just not enough time. There's not enough exploration and gathering to really get all the resources you want, especially the resource of focus, which is what you do to actually do your investigations and questioning stuff. So there's a whole lot of like questions that the demo leaves open that I want to get more into. So that is definitely one thing I will probably do at some point. Um, the I honestly forget exactly what the balance is between like the sort of like combat sections versus the investigation sections. The investigation sections I would have stuck with me more. But we'll see how it all goes. I have not dug into crafting much at all. Yeah, there's a lot that's on offer, so I need to see what the whole game is like. Okay, next up here is Preserve, which I think is supposed to be sort of like a Zen sandboxy sort of game. Each level has its own goals and things like that, or at least you keep adding goals as you progress if you want and how you do things. I think I missed something within the tutorial. Either that or the tutorial just wasn't good, but I'm going to chalk it up to I probably missed something. I'll give the devs the benefit of the doubt because once I was kind of let free to go build my own levels and such, um, I kind of got stuck. It's like I started doing a few things and then I realized I didn't have the resources that I needed to continue doing things. And I really like the idea of Preserve. You're basically creating your own island with all the different plants and wildlife that you want, and it's supposed to be pretty zen. So the fact that I kind of got stonewalled with it really left like I don't want to say a bad taste in the mouth. It was just a letdown, so put it that way. Because I wanted to do more with it. I only ended up putting like 15 minutes in because the tutorial was quick, and the fact that it was short, maybe it could have been more. Could have explained some of the math a bit of all the placement and how things build on each other. But I don't know. I may give it another chance. Maybe I'll see someone like a video of someone doing it to see what I've missed. To see if I want to play more of it because I like the idea. I want to like the game more. I didn't get the information I needed to really build. That could be me. That could be the design of the tutorial. I don't know. All right, next up we have here is one of my other dice roguelikes, and this is the one that's actually also a Pokemon-like. This is Dice Folk. Um, it was fun when I played it. I went about an hour on it, and yeah, again, it was fun, but kind of like Dicey Dungeons. The menus let you know that there's so much that you can unlock, and the gameplay that I didn't really feel like I unlocked much at all. So it didn't grab me like I would hope for another roguelike or another Pokemon like. I'll give it another shot at some point, but I certainly know it doesn't scratch the itch that a lot of Pokemon likes, what I'm looking for in a Pokemon like. That sort of both the collecting nature of the creatures and how those creatures interact with each other in certain battles. There definitely were aspects of it, but it felt more like it was based on the dice than it was on the creatures. So we'll give it a chance that I could be getting that feeling because I haven't unlocked a lot. So if I end up doing more, that could come back to scratching that itch that I really like to see for Pokemon likes. But as of what I've played so far, it didn't quite hit the notes for me. All right, next up here is the first of 3 games that I played on one of my marathon days. I played more than just 3 on that day, but these 3 were all created by Native American developers. So I really wanted to highlight that for Indigenous Peoples Day, which was the day I did the marathon, because I had off that day. So the first one here is called Button City. Of the 3, it's not one that has any like obvious indigenous culture overlaid on it. This is just a fun sort of exploration interactive game. You're playing as a kid who's new to a town and gets drawn into the arcade there, interacting with all the kids there and trying to become the best at the signature game in that arcade with your new friends. And it's just a game of games because there's a whole bunch of mini games. There's a whole bunch of other games in the arcade. I think it's really fun. There is a rhythm game in the arcade, which I started trying to do. I need to do more, and maybe there was something wrong either with the fact that I'm using keyboard and mouse, or something maybe with the audio, but it didn't feel to me like it was hitting notes when I thought it was. The game is basically DDR, except you're playing it with your keyboard. Um, and I love DDR. So I want to do more. I spent a lot of time at the end of that session on that game. I think I had a total of nearly 2 hours within that full marathon stream with Button City. Did I say Button City earlier? I don't think I did. It's Button City. But the art style in Button City feels very similar to like a short hike or Little Gator game. So that's always really fun to see. And I love the game within game aspect. So very fun thing, something I will definitely explore more. This game had a lot more depth than I was expecting based on the visual similarity to Short Hike and Little Gator game. So there's a lot more like side quests and main quests that you can take. So something worth exploring for sure. Okay, next up among the indigenous games here is Two Falls, and I am not going to attempt to pronounce the native name. Um, uh, just I won't. I would butcher it. Um, but Two Falls is a very story heavy game. It's like I don't want to call it like visual novel or walking simulator. I do think it's a relatively linear game, although you do have choices where you get to increase or decrease your stats with other characters and some of the items that you own. But it is so lovingly crafted. Like you really feel immersed in the wilderness. I think it's, um, along the St. Lawrence Riverway in Canada at the time when exploration was still a big thing, and you had the settlers coming in and interacting with the natives at the time. It's interesting how they play off of the language differences in the game. And the environments are just so beautiful. There's a ton of both historical comments as well as kind of the Native American culture and lore that's been folded into this game. It is gorgeous. You should play it. I need to play it more. Again, I do feel like the choices feel like they matter, but I also get the sense that it's somewhat linear, so I don't know how that's going to balance as you go through more of the game, but I do need to play more. It is gorgeous, and you should play it as well. All right, third amongst this list of Native American dev games that I've played, this is one that I actually put an extra session into already because I wanted to finish it. It is Never Alone. If you have heard of any Native American dev games before, this is probably the one you've heard of. It is a platformer set in Alaska, and exploring basically some of the myths of the Native peoples up there, or at least just telling a really nice story, as well as the big thing about this game is as you go through it and you hit like not checkpoints, but you can find um, I guess we'll call them checkpoints, but each time you hit one, you get a video of the actual people talking about their culture. So it takes you out of the game a bit. It feels like an educational experience in that sense, but it's woven in a really nice way that it doesn't feel disruptive. And I'm someone who loves documentaries in the first place. So I think it went really well, at least that aspect of it. I will say, as a platformer, it felt a little janky to me. And this is one where I don't even think having a like physical game controller would help. I just think that the way the characters interact with the environment and the way they respond to your inputs is just a little off, a little finicky, but it is also very much made with love, especially with all of the cultural aspects, excuse me, that are thrown into the game. And there is a side game included with it, and I think there is also a sequel either in development or actually out now. I'm not sure. Never Alone 2 is just in development. It doesn't even have a release date planned at the moment. Um, it's gorgeous. The graphics have definitely been significantly improved. It looks more 3D now, at least the visuals that we're seeing. So 3D platformer? I don't know. Actually, yes, it says in the description, 3D co-op adventure. And that's one really cool thing about Never Alone is it is a co-op platformer. You can play it on your own. Obviously, I did. But the real heart of the story is the interaction between the two main characters. So if you actually get the chance to do it co-op, I would say definitely do it. It will greatly increase the enjoyment of the experience, I think. It may make you certainly feel more integrated into the game. So it is, for all of the platformer jankiness, I think with that co-op aspect and also just the culture that's been woven into it, also very good. Please play it. All right, next up here is one of the rhythm games, the dedicated rhythm games that I have played this time around. This is Crypt of the Necrodancer. I've been excited for this game for a long time. I heard about it on its own, then I heard about Cadence of Hyrule, which is basically the Zelda skin of this game, which is official Nintendo game, which is kind of fun to think that they did that. And there's also a sequel out, Rift of the Necrodancer. Well, I don't want to say sequel. I shouldn't say sequel. We'll get to Rift of the Necrodancer later. But Crypt of the Necrodancer is a game where you are moving around a dungeon in time with a beat, and you basically attack by trying to move into an enemy's space. And as you do it with the beat, you get multipliers, you get to learn your enemy's movements. And if you know your enemy's movements really well, you can go through the game without taking any damage, and it's just how well you can consistently keep with the beat as you move. It's a really fun concept for a rhythm game. I've played it a few times. How much? Not a lot. It's not a lot each time, so I put a total of less than an hour into the game. But I think I've played it 2 or 3 separate occasions, because it's just fun to go in and play a few levels to the beat. Yeah, so I haven't done a lot of play through it. I haven't gotten to like a boss or to the end of of a dungeon yet. I have timed out on songs before, so I'm not sure how that actually gets into the whole scoring and progression, whatever else not. But it's a fun game. I do enjoy Rift of the Necrodancer more, and we'll get to that later. All right, next up here is a very well-produced little platformer called A Foxtale. I actually really liked this game through most of my playthrough of it, and then right at the end, the difficulty level spiked, and I was like, oh, this is where I can tell I'm not used to doing precision platformers. And this is a precision platformer, not an action platformer. Um, because I think at that very last level was just timing all of your jumps through disappearing platforms and whatever else not. And one-time use boosts. It's again, just a difficulty level spike that I did not do a good job of managing, but it plays like butter. I love the aesthetic. I would definitely want to know more about the animal culture that sets this game up, because foxes are maligned in this game, apparently, and you get to interact with a couple of animals. There's even one that's actually interested in befriending you, apparently, but as a fox who's been maligned, you just keep moving on. Um, but yeah, so it's a very fun game, especially if you like your platformers. Not my type of thing, but yeah, I would recommend it if that's your game. Next up is a demo for a game called Elfie, a Sand Plan, which is a puzzle game where you basically get to build a sand castle in 3D based on either one, two, or three 2D images on what the castle should look like from each of your axes. It's just a demo at the moment. No, no, no. It is released. Oh no, so it is a demo right now, but it is expected to release in the first quarter of 2026. The demo was really short. I played through it in like 15 minutes, and I was really dumb. I hadn't checked OBS when I switched games, so none of it has been recorded properly. But again, it was a puzzle game that I loved the kind of visual spatial awareness puzzle solving aspect of it. And yeah, I blasted through the demo in 15 minutes. I want more. Please, Elfie, get the real game out quickly. Okay, next on the list here is the first of three, what I guess I'm gonna call Balatro-likes. It's the whole subgenre of roguelikes where uh it's sort of like a deck builder where as you go through the randomness and build your decks, you make number go up quicker. Really fun style of roguelikes. And this one is called Stack Flow. Instead of playing poker, you are playing Tetris. Um, and I like Tetris, and Stack Flow, I think, does a relatively good job of adapting it. Um, I will say that you don't quite get the Tetris, you don't quite scratch the Tetris itch with this game because instead of continually playing on one board, you actually have a finite set of pieces that you're using, and you have to hit your certain score within that finite set of pieces. There's not a lot of like game speeds up as you go. It's a lot more puzzle and problem solving than it is, action placement that you get from normal Tetris. Also, the balance of which half of the number system you want to emphasize more, there's so many different options. I didn't quite get a good grasp of that. There were a few upgrade options or upgraded pieces that I personally ended up liking because it seems to pop off quickly. Um, but it it didn't feel like there was a ton of strategy for Stack Flow. Again, I've played it multiple times. I've usually never gotten past board like 6 or 7 before my, you know, pool of pieces runs out and I haven't hit the target score yet. I think I might have hit board 9 once in my playing of the game. It is fun. It is quick. Um, but so I would recommend it, even if it doesn't quite scratch the Tetris itch and it doesn't quite scratch that Balatro strategizing itch. Still a pretty fun game, and if you just have like 3 minutes to spare, 5 minutes, it's great. I like it. Okay, next up is the full release of Kristalla, and I say full release because I played the demo for Kristalla a while back. It was actually a while back enough that it was on my old laptop, and I had trouble with the camera for one, but also just running the game. So in the, I think, 2 years since the demo release versus the full release, they've made the game look prettier. It runs smoother. That might be because I have a new laptop. I don't know. But it is fun. It is the first, and I think so far only, Souls-like or Sekiro-like game that I've played. And even though I'm not a huge dark fantasy person, I think this has done well with it. The swordplay is nice, the magic is nice, the exploration is nice. There's a lot of kind of like almost parkour as you're exploring through the levels, which is fun. A lot more stealth. I shouldn't say a lot more. I don't have a good comparison point, but it is kind of a little. It does have a stealth focus to it. Um, so yeah, and even if I'm not a dark fantasy person, I think the aesthetics on this game are great, and I want to know more about the world. I still need to uh, finish that first main area because there's, I think, one gate that I haven't unlocked yet, and I had trouble finding when I was finishing that stream. But we're already into middle, late November here, so it hasn't been long. I do definitely plan on doing it again. It's not like I've abandoned the game significantly. It's only been a month, um, especially with the holidays coming through here. But it is fun. I will definitely do some more of it. Okay. Next up here is the second of the Balatro-likes that I've played this year. This is Dominova. If you can't tell from the name, it is based on dominoes. I really like this one for the fact that it feels a lot like chess to me in the sense that you have to strategize your board state almost more than anything else. You know, there are random actions that will come down on the board. The Nova part of this is you're playing in space, and all sorts of different like asteroids or black holes or whatever can come and affect your board. And of course, you can upgrade your dominoes, as well as get special abilities that will reward you for what plays you make and maybe give you more plays. The actual dominoes themselves, the upgrades on the dominoes themselves don't feel as impactful as either the play upgrades, the extra plays, or how you place the dominoes. So it's definitely, it does have that number go up funness, but the actual dominoes themselves, it's not like you're upgrading the cards in Balatro or something, or the number tiles in Wordplay, which we'll get to. The dominoes basically stay the dominoes. You have to balance your colors and your numbers and things like that, and some of them have fun extra effects. But it's like the other stuff outside the board where you really get that fun optimization going on. And you still do have to manage the board state, as I said earlier. The whole placement strategy thing, I love it. I've only played it like once or twice because since it is like chess, it does, in my mind, it takes your focus and it takes time. So it's not one you can just flip on, play a few rounds and be done. I mean, you could if you wanted, I guess. But I don't think that's how this is meant to be played. It's more of a focus game. So it's an interesting take on that whole sort of Balatro style of roguelike games. I like it. Okay. Next up to talk about, we'll be quick with this. It's Fractured Library. Um, Again, I only played the demo, and the demo honestly felt a little bugged. There were just a lot of things that I tried to do that seemed like I should have been able to, and the commands just didn't work. So I really did not play much of this game. I think I had maybe 10, 15 minutes of it, and I just kind of felt like I got soft locked because I saw the item that I wanted to collect, and then I just couldn't actually click on the item or click anywhere around the screen to obtain that item, even though other ones you could interact with. So something was bugged, I think, because I had trouble, going through some of the overworld as well. Hopefully the full game has that fixed, but unless I see some reviews or videos that really endear me to trying again, I'm probably not going to try Fractured Library again, which is a shame because I love that sort of high fantasy sort of style of game, but oh well. Okay, next up is a Metroidvania called Constance. I've only played the demo for this. It seems really fun. The controls are smooth. The art is great. This is another one, though, where I almost felt like a difficulty spike stopped me from doing more with it. I don't have much of the story because I kind of was working through the very first level, and I came to one or two separate areas where I could absolutely see the actions I needed to get through the room, and I just couldn't get the precision part of the platforming done. And I do call this a Metroidvania, not a platformer, because I do know from the descriptions that you're supposed to, gain more abilities with how you jump around and how you use, I think, a paintbrush to interact with the world. So it's a fun little crossover between like Ori and Chicory and a couple of other really fun ones. But this kind of got tabled for me in the same sense that a Foxtail got tabled, because it's like, okay, I can see what I need to do. Actually executing it was a little more difficult than I wanted to do on stream at the time. So I think Constance also, if you do get into the plot, is supposed to get pretty deep, while also being very beautiful. But I haven't gotten there yet. I would love to. This might be one where I end up watching someone else play on Twitch or YouTube, because does seem like it's a very well made game. But maybe the precision platforming aspect of it is beyond me. I don't know. All right, here we go with the third of the Balatro-like roguelikes that I've played. It's Wordplay. You probably saw me last year talk about Mind Over Magnet, which was made by GMTK, and this is his second game. And I think he's already working on a third, which is kind of funny because after he was done with Mind Over Magnet, he said, "I'm done with game dev." But sometimes you just get an idea, you get the itch, and Wordplay is really well polished. It is a Balatro-like based on Scrabble, or Boggle, or some of those word games where you have a bank of letters each round, and you just try to make the longest words you can and score high based on each letter's score and whatever multipliers, modifiers you can add on top. So this is the one of the Balatro likes that I've played, really seems to match what Balatro did pretty well. And I just love word games as well, so this was fun. I just talked about Cryptmaster earlier. I need to play more word games. I know for a while I also used to enjoy doing like Wordle and Octordle and things like that. But yeah, wordplay, really well polished, really well done. I do have the full version now. I think I only played the demo on stream. No, never mind. I was looking at the wrong line on my list here. No, it is just really well done. Full game is great. I've already gotten several really fun achievements in the game, which obviously maybe biases me a little bit. But it's another one where if you have like 10 or 15 minutes, maybe 20, it's good to just play around, see how far you can get. And I do think that the difficulty levels he's mapped out within the game work really well. I have only beaten the hard level once, and I haven't done any wins on the level above that. And I think there's even a fifth. There's also just open play where you can just keep constantly playing. I need to figure that one out more, exactly how to get chain stuff really well in that one. But there are several achievements there that I really want to try just because they seem so out there. But yeah, wordplay, really well done. You can tell this guy has learned a lot about dev in a short time. Or maybe not so short considering how long Mind Over Magnet took. But I guess Mind Over Magnet took so long, wordplay was really quick, and he's already working on the next one. So another example of how devs learn over time, which, kudos. All right, next up here on my list, we are getting into December now, or at least December for the most recent edition of the game. It's Coromon, which I actually started back in September. But if I've played it for several months now, I've done it on stream many times. So this is actually the number 2 game by total hours played for me this year. I've clocked over 9 hours in Coromon so far. So that should let you know I have a pretty high opinion of it. It is, by the name, a Pokemon-like. It is a pixel game, and it feels like a really nice evolution of, classic Pokemon. It has its own twists to set it out from what Pokemon is. Like, the type system is interesting, how the stats actually affect appearances. Your shinies actually matter in this game, which is kind of fun. And how you can actually interact with increasing and decreasing stats. Other really fun stuff. But yeah, I've put over 9 hours into this. I love Coromon. I'll talk about it a little more when I talk about the Pokemon likes as a whole. But good game. Next up on my list here is Dokimon, another one of the Pokemon likes. I started playing this in November, was still playing it in December. Haven't put nearly as much time into it as Coromon, but it goes quicker than Coromon does. I think I've already basically beaten the Dokimon's equivalent of 2 gym leaders, while for Coromon I only just beat the first Titan. But Dokimon is still up there in terms of hours. I've played nearly 4 hours of Dokimon this year. And this is the game that is from the same studio who made New Monsters. And you can see the amount of improvement they've had between those 2 games. Dokimon, if Coromon is kind of like a modern take on classic Pokemon, Dokimon is just a straight homage to classic Pokemon. It is also pixel, but the pixels are much larger. So it does really make you feel like you're playing one of those like Gen 2 Pokemon games, but has some of those quality of life under the hood things that make things run a little bit smoother. There is still a little bit of jank, which also kind of harkens back to old school Pokemon, just in terms of navigating some of the menus for the most part. But it is fun. Again, here's the example of a dev learning over the years. And I don't know, I like it. I'm going to do more of it as well. Next up here is a rhythm-ish game called Grooveyard. I should say it's a kind of a rhythm-ish puzzle platformer is the best way to describe Grooveyard. You basically have a predetermined list of actions on a scroll that basically happen at specific intervals. So this is kind of the rhythm-ish aspect of this game. And then what you have to do is modify your playing field slightly so that your character navigates the playing field the way you want them to based on when those predetermined actions on the scroll happen. This is one where I played through the first world easy, the second world easy, and then the third world I think I got halfway through before I just got stonewalled with a puzzle. I still need to figure that puzzle out. But yeah, for what it is, it's a really neat little game. I think there's a total of 6 worlds. So I'm almost halfway through it if I can just figure out that one puzzle. We'll see how the difficulty spike, if that puzzle is indicative of what's coming next, or if it was just that one puzzle was particularly hard for me. But it's cute. You are basically an old skeleton who's trying to regain their body and have fun at a dance party in the graveyard like you used to. But we'll see how that all goes. It's a fun one. Next up is the very similarly named Ghostland Yard, but despite the similar name, it is a completely different game. Ghostland Yard is a action platformer, and this is one that's almost clearly built for speedrunning. They even have speedrunning options within the menus if you want to try it. But it is fun. It is smooth as butter. And it has also that sort of difficulty spike. I think I made most of the way through the second world before I could see what I needed to do and I just couldn't execute it because you needed that precision aspect to get through it. But it's cute. You're playing just like as it's framed as like Scotland Yard. That's where the name comes from. It's an investigation, like a detective agency, but you are like a little apprentice, little ghost blob thing, and trying to figure out why the world is fracturing. Reality is fracturing, and you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on, jumping through the different areas where reality has fractured. Lots of different ways to die. I died a lot playing this game, but unlike a lot of games where I would get frustrated, I think this one was just so smooth. It felt fun. So even though I died a lot, I kept trying, and it was fun because each level, not only are you kind of just trying to get through, but there are different collectibles you can get, and you can get different medals based on how quickly you do it. So there's a collection aspect, there's a racing the clock aspect, and then there's just kind of the story progression aspect. It's a fun mix. Really well done game. We are now coming close to the end of our list here. Next up is Rift of the Necrodancer. This is not a sequel per se to Crypt of the Necrodancer. It has a lot of the same characters. It's obviously from the same studio. But this game, instead of being like Crypt of the Necrodancer and Cadence of Hyrule, it's more like the game Crystallium that I mentioned earlier, where you've got or kind of a Guitar Hero style of thing. You've got a board scrolling down at you, and you have to hit the monsters on the board as they come to your base, basically. And each monster interacts differently when it gets hit. So that's the hook of Rift of the Necrodancer. And it's just fun, I think. The controls felt more precise than Crystallium or even the little mini rhythm game in Button City. So I was latching onto it and feel like I was doing better a lot quicker than I was for either of those other two similar games or mini games. And yeah, so I haven't put a ton of time into it because I haven't ever gone marathoning it. And when you play, 2 or 3 songs, that's usually enough to scratch the itch, unless you're trying to marathon it. So I played, somewhere between, I think on the very first stream I did it, I played like 5 songs worth. But then I played like, 2 or 3 songs each time since. So I think I've played 3 or 4 times total and accumulated about 45 or 50 minutes total playtime in the game. But yeah, it's one of those fun ones where if you just have a few minutes and that's the kind of game you feel like you want to play, it's great to just pop in, do a few songs, and then be done. It's fun. I like it. I'm definitely doing more of it soon. All right, now we get to talk about some of the really, really big games that I've played this year. Um, all of these games are in my top 5 for hours played. I actually think I misspoke earlier when I said Koromon was my number 2, because my number 1 is actually an AFK game here that I have I can't quantify the number of hours I've played because I'm usually doing work or doing other tasks while the game is running. This is Subway Builder. It is just a sandbox game for the most part. And again, AFK really works well for Subway Builder, where basically the game takes real Google Earth data and real US census data, or other countries' census data, as it is for other cities, and you get to plop into a city and build a metro system or a subway system for that city using that real data. Now, the actual economics of the game are not super reality based. The game says it uses a Mediterranean pricing system, um, which I'm not entirely sure what that means. Uh, but I was able to build a system in DC that used hundreds of stations, way more than the actual DC Metro does. And I think overall, I probably spent, I don't know, somewhere between 30 and 50 billion, which for hundreds of stations, that's just not realistic. But it is still, it feels nice as you play, balancing the income that you get from tickets with the expenses of your trains running every day, and if you need it, the expenses of interest on loans. Um, the game actually does have two modes. I said it's a sandbox game earlier. You can play regularly, which is where you start with $3 billion, and it actually does track your money. Or you can do a completely open sandbox where you just get to build a subway system however you want. I haven't done that because I do like the game aspect of balancing your finances. It makes it feel a little bit more like a challenge, while otherwise, if you just kind of want to show off your ideas, you can go completely into sandbox mode. um, if you have really strong thoughts of what you want a metro system in a given city looks like. But they have like 20 some, maybe even 30 US cities at this point. And I think 5 cities from the UK, and they are working on building more and more in. Um, I don't know why this game like scratches an itch for me so much, but I've done it on stream several times. I've posted some of my maps on Blue Sky. I'm I currently have a Phoenix map running in the background as I'm recording this video. Um, it's I don't know why I find it to be so fun, but I do. It just scratches that itch. I don't know what it is. Um, but this is actually, I say it's an AFK game if you're running one of the money scenarios, is because as long as you have a system where you are making money on any given day, just set that aside, let it run, do something else. Eventually, you will have built up enough money to build more and expand your subway system. So, it doesn't really have consequences, in the sense the only consequence is if you go negative and you're losing money, you can't build anymore and you kind of soft lock yourself. Otherwise, there aren't sudden random expenses that pop out of the ether. Um, you don't have to balance public perception. The only kind of public perception that you balance is what they're willing to pay for your tickets, and people are always willing to pay. It's just how many people will do so. So there's a little bit of playing you can do with your ticket prices, but aside from the early days of my DC map, I really haven't touched ticket prices. I've learned how to build the system where you can just completely ignore that aspect. Um, but yeah, I've put way too many hours into this, if only because I do it AFK, or while doing other things at least. But it's fun. I've had my ideas. I need to actually. I like playing a city without knowing what the real city's metro system is, and I've also really liked the idea of building metro systems for cities that don't even have them to begin with, just to see what they're like. And I've learned that a lot of US cities, they're not like they're not like DC or Chicago or New York. They're so spread out. It's hard to make money in the early game. But oh well, that's Subway Builder. I love it. I would recommend it to people, but I feel like this is like tailor-made for people like me. I don't think it has a wide appeal. Um, but I'll still recommend it nonetheless because I think it's fun. I'm going to group these two together because it's a really obvious way to do it. I have put almost equal amounts of time between October and now into Hollow Knight and Hollow Knight Silksong. Hollow Knight has been on my to play list, it's been on my backlog for a long time, and I've just never really had the impetus to start it until I won a Steam key for Hollow Knight Silksong from one of the other streamers I watched. So shout out to Skyfox for that stream key. Back in, I think it was September or something. Oh, because yeah, it was his September stuff on Twitch. But since then, I started playing it that first week of October. I have been playing both of them ever since. Uh, th they are worth the hype. That is just the easy way to say it. People have talked about these games for as long as Hollow Knight has been out. And of course, there's the whole meme of waiting for Silksong to come out and how it just dropped out of nowhere, which was amazing to watch. Um, I would probably rank Hollow Knight a little bit above Silksong. I think Silksong is the better crafted game, although that's just by a hair, just because the team has had more time to do it. Um, but I'd put Hollow Knight better from a player's perspective, if only because Silksong has a much higher difficulty level. If you've watched any of my streams or my videos, you know that I think Silksong, like, the bosses aren't really the problem for me. It's just traversing the overworld. The amount of times I have died to environmental hazards or to just random enemies that are scattered about the overworld, just the exploration area, um, makes Silksong just a little bit more frustrating than Hollow Knight. Although I have now kind of locked myself in Deep Nest in Hollow Knight, and getting out is proving to be difficult. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, Hollow Knight and Hollow Knight Silksong, both amazing games, absolutely worth all the praise they've earned over the years. And last, but certainly not least, because I think this is the game that I've put the most hours in, at least hours that I've been able to clock throughout this year. It's Nurikabe World. Nurikabe is, I believe, a Japanese numbers game. It's similar to Minesweeper, except it doesn't have the consequences of Minesweeper. The idea is you have a board with numbers on it. Each number represents the size of the island that number sits on, and then you basically have to draw water around all the islands so that you have one continuous block of water on the map, but no large blocks of water without islands in them. Like, you can't have a 2x2 thing of water. Otherwise, the water has to be continuous, the islands can't be touching. So yeah, it's just a logic puzzle numbers game, and I have put over 70 hours into this over the year. But it's one of the games that, part of the reason I've put so much time into it is it has daily puzzles. So there's an easy, medium, and hard that they will release every day. I will say that the hard daily puzzles are noticeably easier than the hard procedural generation puzzles that you can just play infinitely. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but it is a noticeable thing for me, where if I just go and play on infinite mode, it is noticeably harder than the hard daily puzzle. But yeah, I've put way too much time into this. One thing I haven't done is I haven't created any user-generated puzzles, because that is an option in the game. I have played some user-generated puzzles before. I need to do more, because they're usually pretty creative, and especially for people who make a fun little gimmick for the stages that they create. It's always fun figuring out what that gimmick is. But yeah, it's just a simple numbers game. I'm a simple puzzle man. It's great. If you're a puzzle person like me, I would absolutely recommend it. Okay, before we get to my top games of the year, I wanted to start talking about some of these games in categories, because as I mentioned at the top of the video here, I played 63 games this year, with 54 of them new to me. It's a heck of a lot more than I've played overall, and I actually can have some relatively populated categories of games that I can now actually compare to. So I wanted to do that here. And we'll start with actually what's the smallest one this year, which is kind of surprising to me, because last year I actually did a lot of Metroidvanias, and this year I really only did 3. It's all the more surprising because 2 of the Metroidvanias that I played last year, Animal Well and Moonlight Pulse, have been on my backlog to play more of, but I just never did it this year. But the 3 Metroidvanias that I did play this year were pretty well hard-hitting stuff. There was Constance, which I still say is a really well-made game, even if it had a difficulty spike that I didn't want to navigate on stream. And then, of course, Hollow Knight and Hollow Knight Silksong. And as I said, reviewing those games, those 2 have earned all the praise they get. Silksong has its own difficulty issues, but They're just great. I can kind of compare some of these to the Metroidvanias I did last year, but clearly there's nothing that really measures up to Hollow Knight or Hollow Knight Silksong. If I had played Animal Well in its heyday and actually had some of that community interaction, it might be up there as well. But I played it after the fact. I didn't get super far. Metroidvanias belong to Hollow Knight and Silksong right now. The next category up, which I've played four and a half of these this year, are my rhythm games. Um, Again, I loved playing DDR and Guitar Hero and Rock Band growing up. So the fact that I've only just this year really started delving into rhythm games again is a little bit of a surprise in and of itself. But this year I played Crystallium, Crypt of the Necrodancer, Rift of the Necrodancer, the sort of rhythmish Grooveyard, and then the rhythm mini game in Button City. And of those five, I definitely prefer Rift of the Necrodancer the most. And it's nice because, Rift of the Necrodancer is one that was released this year, similar to how Silksong was released this year from my Metroidvanias. So that would be what I would say the best by category for my rhythm games. Rift of the Necrodancer, I love it. I'm going to be doing more of it. Next up in my categories actually kind of surprised me. I've done 7 platformers this year, which again, because I'm not as big of an action games person, this is why I say I'm kind of surprised that I've done so many platformers. But I might be playing a little bit loose with what the definition of a platformer is. But so the list that I have here: Neva, Jumping Jazz Cats, Relooted, Nico Dorico, Never Alone, Foxtail, and Ghostland Yard. Some of them clearly are platformers. Some of them kind of stretch, I think, what a platformer is, especially with adding extra aspects to them. But it's still interesting to me to see that I've played 7 this year, because I would not have pegged that if you had asked me what kind of games have I done this year. I would say that of those games, I still say the best of those is Neva. But again, I played more of it last year than I did this year. So it's an older game. Of the games that have released this year or close to this year, I think the best one is probably Nico Dorico. How polished it is and how much good of an homage it is to those classic N64 puzzle, or not puzzle, just platformers in general. Action platformers, probably the right way to say it for Nico Dorico. There's a little asterisk there because Nico Dorico was a late 2024 release, so I kind of have it grouped in with my 2025 games, even if it's not officially 2025. But yeah, it's fun. If I had to give a nod to any of the other games, I'm looking forward to when Relooted has its full release. But it's just the demo right now, so can't rate it too highly, but it is very good. Props to the Relooted team. Next category up for me is my puzzle games. As I've always said, I'm kind of a puzzle person, and we have some interesting overlaps going on in here. But I played 9 puzzle games this year. Schrodinger's Cat Burglar, Voxelgram, the original, and Voxelgram 2's demo, Luminatory, Blobun, Mimic Logic, Elfie is a Sand Plan, Grooveyard, and Neurokabe World. Many of these I've sunk many hours into, particularly Voxelgram, Mimic Logic, and Neurokabe World. And while I love some of the creativity, particularly of like Mimic Logic and Luminatory, and Schrodinger's Cat Burglar, which I want the full game to come out, please. I have to give the nod here to Neurokabe World just because of how much time I put into it and because it is that simple of a numbers game, and I'm a simple numbers puzzle man. So yes, Neurokabe World is definitely my pick of the puzzle games that I've played this year. And here's a really fun category coming up next. It's the roguelikes and roguelites. And I say I've played 10 of them, but as we go through this list, you'll see that roguelike and roguelite are now such a broad category. They have like subgenres within them. I've mentioned the Balatro likes already, and of those this year, I've played Dominova, Stackflow, and Wordplay. Each one has its pros and cons. I definitely like them. You have some more traditional roguelikes, although I think a lot of them, I don't even know if I've played a really traditional roguelike or roguelite before, but I have some of the dice-based roguelikes in Slice and Dice, Dicey Dungeons, and Montabi. Montabi is also a Pokemon-like roguelike, which has a little bit of overlap there with Dice Folk. Oh, Dice Folk, again, another dice thing there. Montabi is not, I flipped those, I'm sorry. Dice Folk is the dice Pokemon roguelike. Montabi doesn't have the dice to it, but it is another Pokemon-like roguelike, so again, all this fun stuff. Dungeon Raise was an early one that I tried. There was also Mimic Logic, which stands alone as kind of like the logic puzzle roguelike. But if I had to rate all of the roguelites I've done, knowing that roguelite and roguelite are um, have their own subgenres and everything, I have to give the nod here to Blueprints. Every day is different. There is some build up over time, but I don't know. It is one of the top games of this year, not just for me, but for the entire gaming populace for a reason. Blueprints is amazing. I need to play more of it. I have to be careful because, as I said while reviewing the game, I've only played it twice, but I sink 3 or 4 hours into it every time I play it. So I need to make sure I have that time the next time I decide to play Blueprints. But yes, it is. It has earned all the accolades it has gotten so far. And last but certainly not least are my Pokemon likes. I have played 10 of these if you actually count that I played 2 actual Pokemon games this year as well. But going down the list, it's Cassette Beast, it's Beastieball, it's Montabi, it's Creature Keeper, it's my 2 Pokemon Nuzlocke, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and Platinum. It's New Monsters, it's Dice Folk, it's Koromon, and it's Dokimon. So there's 10, all of them. And it's really interesting seeing kind of what counts as a Pokemon like this year, and which ones do or don't scratch that itch. Obviously, you have the 2 original Gen 4 Pokemon games, so I'm going to push those off to the side now. There are some of those roguelike ones with Montabi and Dice Folk. Neither one of those really scratched my Pokemon itch. I think Montabi might if I play more of it, and again, Dice Folk might if I unlock more of the things like Dicey Dungeons has unlocks for it. But the whole, like, really collector aspect of it and the type matching aspect of it, those weren't present in those roguelikes as much. Creature Keeper, also the one that tried to be Legend of Zelda while also being Pokemon, kind of that adventure RPG, didn't quite hit the mark for me. Then you get like New Monsters, Koromon, and Dokimon. These ones do a really good job of matching what you expect from a Pokemon like. Because they stick relatively close to it. I would loop these in with one of the games I played previously in Temtem. Temtem did a really nice job of taking the original Pokemon formula and tweaking it to make it its own, but still really feeling like Pokemon. Koromon, as I've said earlier, is taking that original pixel Pokemon and bringing it into the modern age, while Dokimon and New Monsters are more an homage to the original, and Dokimon is a clear step up from New Monsters. But if I am rating my Creature Keeper, or not Creature Keepers, my Pokemon likes for which the best ones are, it's still Cassette Beast and Beastieball for me. And Beastieball is one of the late 2024 releases, so I'll loop that into the 2025. As that's kind of my pick for this year. But even then, I think Cassette Beast is that step above just for how they've taken that Pokemon idea. They still have a really creative type chart, but they've changed that for how the types interact. They've changed how you explore the world, and just the lore there is so good. So Cassette Beast gets my nod for the best Pokemon like I've played this year. But if we're talking about 2025 new or 2025 new, I would give the nod to Beastieball. All right. We're done naming our best games from each of the categories I decided to highlight. It's time to get into my actual top 5 games of the year. I do have 2 honorable mentions, and one of them in particular is one of the late 2024 games, which is why it's being put in an honorable mention and not actually in the top 5. All my top 5 are true 2025 releases. But my 2 honorable mentions here are Crystalla and Beastieball. Both games that I think I definitely want to play more of. Crystalla, it's been great seeing its development from the demo to now. But Crystalla, again, is not typically the kind of game I will play a lot of. It's like my first real Souls-like, Sekiro-like, whatever. So it's not fully in that realm of games that I like to play. Beastieball, again, much more what I like to play. A little bit off on the Pokemon likeness just because it doesn't have the types that Pokemon does, but really creative. Love the game. It's just not officially a 2025 release, so I'm not going to put it up there. I can't really separate games 3 through 5 on my list. And these are games that I personally like. I don't necessarily think they are the best games of the year, because they're more for me than they are more like general populace popular. But these 3 that I'm grouping together in ranks 3 through 5, in no particular order, will be Subway Builder, Nurikabe World, and Wordplay. So as you can tell, they're all like my puzzle or sandbox sorts of things. Again, which is why They're great for me. They may not be great for everyone, but I'll still recommend them. And you probably won't see them on other people's lists because they aren't sort of like the best games of the year, but they are great for me. So there are my rankings 3 through 5. When we get now to the top two, these ones probably shouldn't be too surprising. If you actually look at the list of games I played and list of games people have been talking about for this year, you probably already know what my top two are. For number two, I'm putting Hollow Knight Silksong. Probably the only reason I'm not putting it as number one is because of the difficulty level is a little bit frustrating for Hollow Knight Silksong. But aside from that, it is an amazing game. It is a absolutely admirable sequel to the original Hollow Knight, worth all the praise it's getting. But yeah, that little bit of difficulty is why it is not my number one game for this year. It's number two. My number one for this year is Blueprints. I just love the creativeness. I love the depth that's available there. And it's just the intrigue is great. It keeps you hooked. The gameplay loop, in my opinion, is great. It's such a creative meld of multiple genres. And yeah, it's incredible. It's again worthy of all the accolades it's gotten this year. It is my number one for 2025. And that's that. That is my review for the year. All the games I've played, including all of the new releases. 63 games that I've played this year, which sounds impressive, particularly with my history. But if I go over and look at my backlog spreadsheet, the other tab of it, it has over 180 games. So the fact that I've only played a third of them this year is kind of sad. I've got a lot more to do next year if I can. I've also particularly learned that I don't seem to play a lot during the summer, which I'm not entirely sure why, because it's not like I get out a ton. I don't travel a lot, and I still have a lot of the evenings to myself. So I should be playing more. We're going to see if I have a lull in the summer for 2026. I don't necessarily have a ton of games I'm particularly looking forward to for 2026. That would be a good way to end the video. I've mentioned a few that I've only done a demo for so far that are due to release. So I guess I would say I'm looking forward to those. But again, all of these little demos that I played, they aren't like the big AAA or really high profile indie releases that other people might be talking about. I absolutely want to get Digimon Story Time Stranger. I just need to buy it. It's on the more expensive side. Digimon World Next Order I do have already, so I can probably try that. I think I also have Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. There are a few Pokemon likes that I still need to try out. Nexomon is certainly one of them. And of the, Pokemon likes that I've already tried, I still want to explore more for several of them. I want to explore more for several of those like roguelikes and Metroidvanias that I've had on the back burner, and just collect achievements for some of the other games that I have. There are some high-profile games that I haven't played yet that are also on my list. Nobody Saves the World and Rain World, two I know highly, highly recommended games that I want to try. Terra Nil and Tunic, Slay the Spire, Wander Song, all of the Zelda games that I have on the back burner. Like I need to finish Tears of the Kingdom. Then I own Age of Calamity. I now own, thanks to Christmas, Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom. I want to buy Age of Imprisonment. I want to buy Pokemon Legends ZA. I own Pokemon Legends Arceus, but I haven't played it yet. What else is on my list? Undertale and Hades are there. I did mention when I was talking about Knights Academy that I do want to do more on joystick. There's plenty of more adult games that I would like to just see what they're like. But yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff to look forward to in 2026, even if it's not necessarily some of the things that other people are looking forward to. Again, my backlog is over 180 games here, like 120 that I haven't even touched at all. So including the ones that I want to play more, I've got a lot, and who knows what's going to release in 2026. I hope people are looking forward to it. I know I am. I hope you enjoyed this review. Now's the time to do all the fun YouTube stuff. Hit like if you like the video, subscribe and ring the bell if you want to see more. I have a link in the description down in my Ko-fi to buy more games if you want to support me. That's always appreciated. And with that, I will see y'all later. Bye!